My name is Adrian Blount, or I'm also known as Gadex Norafiles, which is my drag performance name. I'm from San Diego, California. I am a descendant of enslaved African people and Jewish ancestry. I'm a person that has multiple areas of intersections. I am a migrant. I am an immigrant. I am dark-skinned. I'm Black. I'm non-binary or gender non-conforming. I'm an artist. I'm a single parent. And so I have all of these paradigms of lived experiences that make up who I am. And so when I'm going into different communities, it's not difficult for me to be able to empathize because I can understand that my experience is not central to human experience. Migration is not something that's just open for interpretation. It's a lived experience. It's an experience that is either chosen. In my case, I chose to move, but in some cases it's not chosen, it's forced. Sometimes you have to move due to survival purposes. So it's not something that's romantic or glamorous, it's something that's necessary for survival. Whether it's chosen or forced movement, it's for an individual or a group of individuals to feel some sort of feeling of home or safety or belonging. I applied to this scholarship because it was deeply personal to me as someone who actually is a migrant, and I believed that the museum, with all of the resources that it holds, would enable me to tell my story with top-tier resources, with effective collaborations, high-quality collaborations with the museum. So the object that inspired me lies within the permanent exhibition of the Germanische National Museum. It's called the Beheim Globe. And this Beheim Globe was created during a time where Columbus was making his first colonial exhibitions to the United States, which used to be called Turtle Island by the Native Americans. And this globe is rejoiced over, and it's looked at as something that's precious in the Nuremberg historical collections. It has a strong imperial history. And you can see that but with how human beings are depicted on the globe. When I came into contact with this globe, it was something that was really interesting because of these racist depictions. And so I wanted to identify that in this hair map that I made in my installation downstairs. And I wanted to show through that hair map the influence of African indigenous practices having influenced the world as well. And not from a centristic perspective, but from a shared collective of experience that has been able to persevere throughout time and still be maintained today. So my project is called Tower Pishiboro, and it exists in 3 parts. There's the installation, which you can see a sneak peek up here. You can also see the full installation downstairs. And it also takes place as a performance as well as workshops. And both the installation and performances have taken place here. It's a piece that reconciles folks who are of African descent who are currently on the continent of Africa, but also those who have moved, whether chosen or through force, within the African diaspora throughout the world. And it's a way of bringing us together through these shared experiences of protecting our hair, because hair has a deeply colonial history as well. And so the project uses materials that have heavy symbolism, like Hazendrat, which symbolizes like being in a cage. It symbolizes borders, symbolizes the harsh containment of people, and that even the use of it can cause bloodshed. I wouldn't say that when somebody comes into my installation that they should focus on anything in particular, because I want it to be a personal experience, and whatever they take out of it is valid. I would just like them to have an informed experience and to know that, like the crowns on the trees are made from people in Ghana. They were taught how to make these crowns, and now they're here hanging on these trees in Germany. And that's a collective experience, and that's bringing 2 different worlds together.